The Seattle rain drummed against the windows of the modern hillside home as Zachary Aguirre's Tesla pulled into the driveway. Something in his gut had urged him to return early from his environmental conference in Portland. The house's security panel blinked with an unusual pattern of entries. His cousin David's access code had been used multiple times over the past week. Zach's fingers tightened around his briefcase as he entered through the garage. Security cameras tracked his movement through the house, their red lights blinking steadily as they recorded what was about to unfold. The sound of wheels rolling across hardwood floors drew him toward the master bedroom. In the master bedroom, his wife of 8 years, Gabriella Fink, stood amid a scatter of designer clothes, methodically packing 3 Louis Vuitton suitcases. A new diamond bracelet glinted on her wrist that he had not bought her. She did not even flinch when she saw him in the doorway. "What's going on, Gabby?" Zach asked evenly, though his mind was already assembling pieces of a puzzle he had long refused to see. Gabriella's perfectly made-up face twisted into an expression mixing relief with unmistakable spite. "Oh good, you're home early. Saves me having to leave a note." She continued folding a silk blouse with deliberate care. "Time you learned the truth, darling." "And what truth would that be?" Zach asked, remaining in the doorway as his presence filled the frame. She laughed, a harsh sound unlike the warm chuckle he once loved. "Those business trips your cousin David took you on, they were not for work. They were our romantic getaways, 8 months of them, to be exact." Her hand drifted to her stomach. "And now we're moving to Paris. I am pregnant with his child." The words hit like physical blows, yet Zach's face remained impassive. Years of high-stakes negotiations had taught him to mask his reactions. "I see. And I suppose David arranged all this." "Oh no, darling. Your parents did." Her smile turned cruel as she reached into her purse and pulled out 2 first-class tickets to Paris, tossing them onto their king-size bed. "They have always favored David more than you know. Who do you think funded our little adventures? That precious family inheritance you are so proud of." Zach's phone buzzed with a message from his assistant, Kayla Harper. "Sir, you need to see this. Urgent irregularities in the company accounts." Gabriella taunted while sliding another designer dress into a suitcase. The great Zachary Aguirre, speechless at last. "David said you'd probably just stand there trying to look strong." He replied coldly, noting how she flinched at his tone. His eyes caught movement on one of the security camera feeds visible on his phone. Gabriella was texting frantically, likely to David. As she zipped up the final suitcase, something fluttered to the floor. A folded paper that landed face up. It was an ultrasound image. At that moment, Zach's banking app lit up with notifications of large transfers from family accounts. "Did my parents help you pack too?" he asked, his voice dripping with quiet menace. "Or was that all David's doing?" Gabriella's composure cracked slightly. "Your mother helped me choose the apartment in Paris. She said it was the least she could do for the woman carrying her real favorite son's child." She lifted her chin defiantly. "David is everything you are not. Passionate, spontaneous, alive." He continued, "He does not hide behind spreadsheets and environmental regulations. No, he hides behind my name while he is with my wife." His tone was flat as he watched her confident facade waver. "Tell me, does his wife Michelle know about your little Parisian dreams, or is she too busy with her board duties at my company to notice?" Color drained from Gabriella's face. "How did you know about Michelle?" "I know everything about my company, Gabriella. Everything." Stepping aside from the doorway, he added, "You should hurry. I am sure David is waiting somewhere nearby, probably practicing his concerned cousin act." "You cannot stop us," Gabriella snapped, attempting to wheel the first suitcase past him. "Your parents have arranged everything. By tomorrow, we will be starting our new life, and you will be alone with your company and your environmental crusade." Zach smiled a cold smile that made her step back involuntarily. "We shall see about that. Give my regards to David." As Gabriella tried to brush past him, he caught her arm firmly yet not roughly. "That bracelet you wear, It was bought with stolen money. I would hold on to it. You might need to sell it sooner than you think." He released her and watched as she hurried down the hallway with her suitcases. Security cameras recorded her every movement, just as they had recorded everything else. His phone buzzed again. A message from Kayla with attached financial documents. Zach waited until he heard the front door close before pulling out his phone. "Kayla, book me a suite at the Four Seasons and get me everything you can find on David's travel expenses for the past year. Everything." The rain continued to drum against the windows as he surveyed the bedroom, his mind already formulating plans. They thought they knew him, his wife, his cousin, even his parents. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Within hours, the Four Seasons presidential suite transformed into a war room. Jewel monitors displayed financial records while stacks of documents covered a mahogany desk. Zach's jacket hung forgotten on a chair as he sorted through years of carefully orchestrated deception. Mr. Aguirre, Violet Dawson, the company's senior accountant, closed the suite's door behind her. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched a thick manila envelope. "What I am about to show you could cost me my position. Your loyalty will not be forgotten. Violet." Zach gestured to the chair across from him. "Tell me everything." She spread documents across the desk and pointed to highlighted sections. "David has been clever, but he got sloppy recently. These travel expenses. He claimed $2.3 million over 18 months. The documentation looks perfect, except these receipts and their timestamps." He examined the forged signatures. "My own name. He has gotten better at copying it." Violet lowered her voice. "There is more. The Paris apartment. He used company resources and shell corporations to hide the purchase." She tapped another folder. "And these environmental compliance reports are complete fabrications. If the EPA discovers this, they will come down hard." Enoch interrupted them. Lawrence Hart, the private investigator Zach had hired, entered carrying a USB drive. "You will want to see this, Mr. Aguirre. Your cousin has been busy." Surveillance photos appeared on the screen. They showed David entering high-end hotels with various women, Gabriella visiting a fertility clinic months ago, and most damning, Richard and Marina Aguirre transferring artwork to a private storage facility. Zach's phone buzzed with a text from Marla Petty, Gabriella's sister. "We need to talk." "Not over the phone. Continue," he instructed Violet while messaging Marla to meet him. The accountant pulled up offshore account records. The Cayman Islands transfers are sophisticated. Someone with legal expertise helped set these up. Troy Poole, my parents' lawyer, was involved. "Keep going," she said. Lawrence clicked through more photos. "Your cousin leads a hidden life. Another wife and 2 children in Vancouver, a pregnant girlfriend in Los Angeles, and an ex-wife with a child in Chicago. He has been playing quite the field." "Sir," Kayla announced as she entered with a tablet. "Marla Petty is downstairs, and there is something else you need to see." Before she could continue, Violet gasped at her screen. "Mr. Aguirre, these patent applications show that David is trying to steal your environmental cleanup technology. He has filed paperwork in France under one of his shell companies." The suite's phone rang, the lobby announcing Marla's arrival. Zach straightened his tie. "Kayla, please escort Ms. Petty up." "Violet, compile everything on those patents." "Lawrence, I want detailed files on each of David's families." "It is time we hear what Gabriella's sister has to say," he ordered. Marla Petty entered looking nothing like her usual polished self. Her designer outfit was wrinkled, and her makeup was smeared. "Zach, I cannot keep quiet anymore. Please, sit down and start from the beginning." "Your parents' anniversary party," she stammered. "That is when it started. I saw them, David and Gabriella, in the garden. He was telling her how your parents always wished he were their son instead of you." Her hands twisted in her lap. "They used my beach house for their meetings. I tried to talk her out of it, but your parents kept arranging private dinners for them." "And Troy Poole's involvement," Zach prompted. He helped hide the money transfers. He said it was all legal, just family estate planning. But last week, she showed me texts. Marlo Petty continued. Gabriella said she is not even sure the baby is David's. She was also seeing her personal trainer. Kayla interrupted gently. Sir, the board is calling an emergency meeting. Michelle Wilson, David's wife, is starting to ask questions about the European contracts. Zach stood, his expression hardening. Marla, you will sign a formal statement of everything you have told us. It was not a question. Violet, prepare those financial records for the board. Lawrence, give me everything on that personal trainer. What are you going to do? Marla asked softly. Your sister and my cousin thought they were writing a love story. Zach's smile was sharp as broken glass. They are about to discover it is a tragedy. He turned to Kayla. Get me Francis Valenzuela on the phone. It is time we brought in our lawyers. The pieces were falling into place, each revelation fitting into a larger pattern of betrayal. Outside the suite's windows, the Seattle skyline glittered in the rain. Unaware that one of its most prominent families was about to implode, Zach's phone buzzed with another message from Lawrence. Gabriella's clinic results confirm the baby is not David's. One more thing, Zach addressed the stunned boardroom. Effective immediately, I am freezing all executive accounts pending investigation, including family assets potentially tied to these crimes. David struggled as agents cuffed him. You have ruined everything, he cried. Gabriella and I had plans. Yes, Zach replied without warmth. You did. He added, send my wife a message. Tell her that Paris is lovely this time of year. Inside a prison cell, the board members sat in shocked silence as David was led away. Michelle's quiet sobs were the only sound, while Marina clutched Richard's arm as their social standing evaporated with every passing second. Kayla, Zach said to his assistant, contact our major clients. They will want reassurance about their contracts. Violet, work with the EPA on those compliance records. He gathered his papers and added quietly, and someone get Mrs. Wilson a car home. The sun set over the Seattle skyline, casting long shadows through the boardroom windows. In a single afternoon, generations of family loyalty had shattered, leaving only the cold truth of betrayal in its wake. Francis Valenzuela's corner office at Seattle's top law firm overlooked the stormy Puget Sound. The senior partner arranged documents across her desk as Zach studied the preliminary legal strategy. Our forensic accountants found something interesting in the printup. Francis highlighted a section. Gabriella modified critical pages after signing. The document filed with the court does not match your original copy. Troy Poole's handiwork. Definitely, Zach observed. He did not expect you to keep the original in your private vault. Francis pulled up offshore banking records. The tax evasion angle is even better. David and your parents created a complex network of shell companies. Each transfer to these Cayman accounts violates federal law. Kayla entered with sealed envelopes. The loyalty agreements are ready for key employees to sign. It has implemented new recording protocols in all offices and conference rooms. Excellent, Zach replied while reviewing the employee list. What is the status on the board members? Janet Chun and Marcus Rodriguez have confirmed their support. They are furious about the patent theft. Kayla handed him another document. The media strategy is ready. We have exclusive interviews lined up with selected reporters. They will run the story our way when the time comes, Francis explained. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. The environmental violations report just came in. David falsified data on 12 major cleanup sites. We can file lawsuits in multiple jurisdictions. Sir, Violet Dawson appeared at the door. You need to see this. She placed a laptop before them. David is applying for an expedited French business visa. He is claiming to represent our company's European division. Zach smiled coldly. Perfect. Francis, contact our lawyers in Paris. Time to shut down his escape route. Violet hesitated. The stock is starting to drop. Rumors about EPA investigations are leaking. Let it fall. Zach studied the trading data. We will buy back shares at a discount once this is over. He turned to Kayla. How does our disinformation campaign? She replied. Working perfectly. David believes we are focusing solely on the patent theft. He has no idea about the tax evasion evidence. Francis organized documents into separate files. I have prepared lawsuits for each jurisdiction. The moment we strike, he will be fighting legal battles on multiple fronts. What about his other families? Zach asked. The Vancouver wife hired a divorce attorney this morning, Kayla reported. The Los Angeles partner is demanding a paternity test. His Chicago ex-wife is reopening their custody agreement. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Aguirre, Michelle Wilson is here. Please show her in. Zach straightened his tie. Francis, stay. Everyone else, please give us the room. Michelle entered with her usual boardroom confidence replaced by controlled fury. I have been reviewing the company records and the scope of David's fraud. How much did you know? I discovered it the same day you did, Zach said, gesturing to a chair. Michelle, what I am about to show you goes beyond corporate theft. He nodded to Francis, who slid across photos of David with various women. Michelle's hands trembled as she studied the images. All this time, while I defended him to the board. We need your support. Zach leaned forward. The company is facing multiple environmental violations. David's actions put every contract at risk. What do you need? Michelle asked. Vote with me to remove him as European Operations Director and support the emergency board measures we will implement. Michelle's expression hardened. Do better than that. Make him pay for every lie. That is the plan, Zach said, sharing a look with Francis. But first, we must secure the company's future. Your public support will send a message to the rest of the board. Done, Michelle stated, smoothing her skirt. And Zach, when you take him down, I want a front row seat. After she left, Francis updated the timeline. EPA notifications are ready. Once we file these reports. No, Zach interrupted. Let David proceed with his visa application. Let him think he is winning. He pulled up surveillance photos of his parents shredding documents. When we strike, we take them all down at once, he added. Kayla returned with urgent news. Sir, Gabriella's fertility clinic records have arrived. The timeline is not as she claimed. Save it, Zach waved her off. That is ammunition for later. Focus on the corporate angle. Let us see how many crimes my dear cousin commits while thinking he is untouchable, he declared. The afternoon sun broke through Seattle's clouds as Zach contemplated the betrayal. One final note came from Lawrence. Your parents were seen at their bank this morning trying to liquidate the family estate. Zach studied the image of his parents hurrying from the bank's private entrance. They have always underestimated me. It is time to show them exactly who they have betrayed. An emergency board meeting at Aguirre Environmental Solutions buzzed with tension. Executives shifted uneasily in their leather chairs as Michelle Wilson, David's wife, studied the quarterly reports with growing concern. These European contracts, Michelle tapped a document, and the cleanup protocols do not match our standards. And the testing data. She glanced at Zach. None of this has gone through proper EPA validation. Before Zach could respond, his phone silently displayed a message from Francis Valenzuela. EPA auditors are on their way. An anonymous tip about fraudulent environmental reports should reach the office in 20 minutes. Mrs. Wilson, Zach addressed Michelle formally, noting her professional demeanor contrasted sharply with the surveillance photos Lawrence had shown him. Perhaps we should discuss the Paris operations in detail, specifically the technology patents recently filed there. Paris operations? We do not have any, Michelle replied, her voice trailing off as Kayla distributed new folders to each board member. The documents outlined systematic fraud, patent theft, and environmental violations. Standing at the head of the table, Zach announced, everything has been traced back to our European Operations Director. Michelle's face paled as she opened her folder. This must be a mistake. The boardroom doors burst open as an EPA official, led by Chief Investigator Sarah Chun, strode in. "Mr. Aguirre, we have a warrant to examine all environmental compliance records." Zach gestured to Violet, who wheeled in a cart loaded with files. "We have been conducting our own internal investigation. You will find everything organized chronologically," he explained. Suddenly, Michelle stood abruptly, scattering documents. "I do not understand these bank statements, these properties in Paris." Her hands trembled as she read further. "A fertility clinic." "Mrs. Wilson," Zach said gently, "there is more you need to know. Perhaps we should discuss this privately." A commotion outside drew their attention. Through glass walls, they saw David striding through the office, his usual confident smile faltering as he spotted the EPA agents. "Perfect timing," Zach muttered. Then louder, "Chief Chun, you will find the falsified reports in David Aguirre's office." The reports, along with evidence of environmental cleanup funds being diverted to personal accounts, were shown on screen. David froze in the doorway, his face draining of color as he saw Michelle holding the incriminating documents. "Michelle, darling, I can explain," David stammered. "Explain what?" Michelle's voice turned arctic. "The stolen patents, the missing millions, or perhaps your pregnant partner moving to Paris." The elevator dinged, revealing Zach's parents, Richard and Marina Aguirre. Their expressions shifted from determination to shock as they took in the scene. "Mom, Dad," Zach greeted coldly, "here to transfer more assets to David's Paris love nest." "You do not understand." Marina stepped forward, her social composure cracking. "David has a vision for the company's future. He would take us international while you waste time with local cleanup projects." Richard placed a restraining hand on his wife's arm. "Son, we can explain everything. The money transfers were just temporary. Save it for the federal investigators." Zach cut him off. "They are particularly interested in how company funds ended up in personal Cayman accounts." "You cannot prove anything," David snarled as his charming facade evaporated. "Those patents are mine. I did all the work while you play the environmentalist hero." Violet then spoke up in a cold, precise tone. "I have documentation proving that Mr. Zachary Aguirre developed those cleanup protocols, dated research notes, and prototype testing data." Michelle slapped David hard across the face, her wedding ring leaving a mark. "You scoundrel. All those business trips, while I sat on this board, helping you steal from your own family," Michelle continued. "Francis Valenzuela, as the company's legal counsel, should inform you that as an unknowing board member, you are protected from personal liability." She then turned to David and the elder Aguirres. "Others are not so fortunate." EPA agents emerged from David's office, carrying boxes of evidence. Sarah Chun approached with handcuffs. "David Aguirre, you are under arrest for environmental violations and fraud." "You cannot do this," Marina protested. "Richard, do something." But Richard Aguirre stood frozen, watching his empire crumble. Years of favoring his nephew over his son had finally backfired. Zach's phone buzzed with a text from Lawrence. "Gabriella's clinic confirmed by DNA tests. The baby is not David's. One more thing," Zach addressed the stunned boardroom. "Effective immediately, I am freezing all executive accounts, including any family assets linked to these crimes." David struggled as agents cuffed him. "You have ruined everything. Gabriella. And I had plans." "Yes," Zach said coldly, "you did. Send my wife a message. Tell her that Paris is lovely this time of year." From inside a prison cell, the board members sat in shocked silence as David was led away. Michelle's quiet sobs were the only sound. Marina clutched Richard's arm as their social standing crumbled with each passing moment. "Kayla," Zach said to his assistant, "contact our major clients. They will need reassurance about their contracts. Violet, work with the EPA on those compliance records." He gathered his papers and added quietly, "And someone get Mrs. Wilson a car home." The sun set over Seattle as Zach surveyed the aftermath. In a single day, he had dismantled years of betrayal. His phone buzzed with another text from Lawrence. Gabriella's trainer has confirmed everything. Save something for tomorrow, he replied. They thought they were playing chess while I was playing war. The federal indictment landed like a bombshell across Seattle's business community. Richard and Marina Aguirre's carefully crafted social empire crumbled as cancellations for their annual charity gala flooded in. Marina heard a voice over the speakerphone. "Marina, darling, Margaret Whitmore, chair of the symphony board, suggests you step down from the fundraising committee due to recent events." Marina clutched her Hermes scarf, her knuckles white. "I have chaired that committee for 20 years, she protested. "Yes, well," Margaret replied delicately, "the FBI is investigating your family's charitable foundation, which makes things rather awkward." Across town, David sat in a holding cell while his attorney delivered more devastating news. "The environmental licenses for all 12 sites have been suspended," his lawyer explained. "The EPA's findings triggered automatic contract terminations, and major clients are filing lawsuits." "What about my immunity deal?" David demanded, but he was rejected. "The prosecutors have too much evidence. Your parents' testimony alone." David slammed his fist against the wall. "They talked. They are facing federal charges too, for the money laundering scheme through their foundation." At Aguirre Environmental Solutions, the crisis management team worked through the night. Violet Dawson's analysis painted a grim picture. Client contracts worth $300 million were in jeopardy. She reported to the Emergency Executive Committee. "The environmental violations have triggered penalty clauses," Janet Chen explained while studying the Asian market reports. "Our Pacific Rim partners are threatening to pull out. Stocks are in free fall." "What about the European division?" Marcus Rodriguez asked. "In chaos." Michelle replied steadily despite her personal turmoil. "The French authorities have frozen all assets connected to the Paris operation, and the stolen patent applications have compromised our technology licenses." Zach's phone lit up with an urgent message from Lawrence Hart. Gabriella's trainer sent video evidence now. The footage played on the boardroom screen, showing Gabriella entering an upscale gym at odd hours and emerging disheveled with a muscular trainer named Derek. Timestamps matched David's business trips exactly. "Release it," Zach instructed. "Let us see how David handles this revelation from his cell." Francis Valenzuela entered with fresh documents. The other families are coordinating their lawsuits. David's Vancouver partner has gone public with her story. The Los Angeles partner has sold her exclusive interview to TMZ, and your parents' reputation is in jeopardy, she added as she pulled up social media coverage. Their positions on charity boards are at risk. The sun set over Seattle as Zach surveyed the aftermath. In a single day, he dismantled years of betrayal. His phone buzzed with a text. "Gabriella's trainer has confirmed everything. Release the evidence." "Not yet," Zach replied. "Save something for tomorrow." "They thought they were playing chess while I was playing war," he declared. The federal indictment rocked Seattle's business community, and Richard and Marina Aguirre's social empire crumbled as their charity gala was canceled. Marina heard Margaret Whitmore's suggestion over the phone, and across town, David sat in a holding cell receiving more devastating news. His environmental licenses were suspended, contracts terminated, and major clients were suing. "What about my immunity deal?" David demanded, but his plea was rejected. "The prosecutors have too much evidence," his lawyer stated. "Your parents' testimony alone will seal your fate." David slammed his fist against the wall. At Aguirre Environmental Solutions, the crisis management team worked relentlessly. Violet Dawson's analysis was grim. Client contracts worth $300 million were at risk due to the environmental violations triggering penalty clauses. Janet Chen reported that Pacific Rim partners threatened to pull out. "What about the European division?" Marcus Rodriguez asked in the ensuing chaos. Michelle replied steadily. "The French authorities have frozen all assets tied to the Paris operation." Zach's phone lit up again with an urgent message from Lawrence Hart. Gabriella's trainer sent video evidence now, it read. The footage showed Gabriella at the upscale gym with Derek, matching David's business trips. Release it, Zach commanded. Let's see how David handles this revelation. Francis Valenzuela entered with more documents. The other families are coordinating lawsuits. David's Vancouver partner is going public, and his Los Angeles partner has already spoken to the media. Your parents' reputation is also at risk, she added while displaying social media coverage. Their charity board positions are in jeopardy. The final news came in. Troy Poole's disbarment is official. Zach's plan was unfolding. Zach surveyed the boardroom. Michelle, I want you to sign a formal statement of everything you have told us. This is not a question. Michelle nodded, her face set with resolve. I will. But do better than just removing him. Make him pay for every lie, she said firmly. Zach shared a look with Francis. We must secure the company's future. Your public support sends a message to the board. Done, Michelle stated. And when you take him down, I want a front row seat. After Michelle left, Francis updated the timeline. EPA notifications are ready. Once we file these reports. No, Zach interrupted. Let David proceed with his visa application, so he thinks he is winning. He pulled up surveillance photos of his parents, shredding documents. When we strike, we take everything down at once, he declared. Kayla returned with urgent news. Sir, Gabriella's fertility clinic records have arrived. The timeline does not match her claims. Save it for later. Zach waved her off. Focus on the corporate angle. Let us see how many crimes my dear cousin commits while believing he is untouchable, he declared. The afternoon sun broke through Seattle's clouds as he contemplated the betrayal. One final note came from Lawrence. Your parents were seen at their bank this morning trying to liquidate the family estate. Zach studied the image of his parents hurrying from the bank's private entrance. They have always underestimated me, he said quietly. It is time to show them who they have betrayed. The emergency board meeting at Aguirre Environmental Solutions buzzed with tension. Executives shifted uneasily in their leather chairs as Michelle Wilson, David's wife, studied the quarterly reports with growing concern. These European contracts and cleanup protocols do not match our standards, Michelle said, tapping a document. And the testing data, none of this has passed proper EPA validation. Before Zach could respond, his phone displayed an urgent message from Francis. EPA auditors are on their way. An anonymous tip about fraudulent environmental reports will reach the office in 20 minutes. Zach looked at Michelle. Perhaps we should discuss the Paris operations in detail, specifically the technology patents recently filed there. Paris operations. We do not have any, Michelle replied, her voice trailing off as Kayla distributed new folders to the board members. The documents outlined systematic fraud, patent theft, and environmental violations. Standing at the head of the table, Zach announced, all evidence has been traced back to our European operations director. Michelle's face paled as she opened her folder. This must be a mistake, she whispered. The boardroom doors burst open as EPA agents, led by Chief Investigator Sarah Chun, entered. Mr. Aguirre, we have a warrant to examine all environmental compliance records, Sarah declared. Zach gestured to Violet, who wheeled in a cart loaded with files. We have been conducting our own internal investigation, he said. You will find everything organized chronologically. Michelle stood abruptly, scattering documents on the table. I do not understand these bank statements or the Paris properties, she stammered. A fertility clinic. Mrs. Wilson, there is more you need to know. Her voice shook as she read further details. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Zach suggested. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the glass walls, they saw David striding through the office, his confident smile faltering as he spotted the EPA agents. Perfect timing. Zach muttered, then raised his voice. Chief Chun, you will find the falsified reports in David Aguirre's office. The reports showed how environmental cleanup funds had been diverted to personal accounts. David froze in the doorway, his face draining of color as he saw Michelle holding the incriminating documents. "Michelle, darling, I can explain," he pleaded. "Explain what?" Michelle's voice turned icy. "The stolen patents, the missing millions, or perhaps your pregnant partner moving to Paris." The elevator dinged, revealing Zach's parents, Richard and Marina Aguirre. Their expressions shifted from determination to shock. "Mom, Dad," Zach said coldly, "are you here to transfer more assets to David's Paris love nest?" "You do not understand," Marina protested, her social composure breaking. "David has a vision for the company's future." Richard placed a restraining hand on Marina's arm. "Son, we can explain everything. The money transfers were only temporary. Save it for the federal investigators," Zach snapped. "They are especially interested in how company funds ended up in personal Cayman accounts." "You cannot prove anything," David snarled, his charm evaporating. "Those patents are mine. I did all the work while you played the hero." Violet then stated coolly, "I have documentation proving that Mr. Zachary Aguirre developed those cleanup protocols." She displayed dated research notes and prototype testing data. Michelle struck David sharply across the face. Her wedding ring left a mark. "You scoundrel," she declared. "All those business trips, while I defended you to the board, you stole from your own family." Francis Valenzuela, the legal counsel, spoke calmly. "As an unknowing board member, you are protected from personal liability." She then addressed David and the elder Aguirres. "Others are not so fortunate." EPA agents emerged from David's office with boxes of evidence. Sarah Chun stepped forward holding a pair of handcuffs. "David Aguirre, you are under arrest for environmental violations, fraud, and multiple counts of financial crimes." Marina protested, "You cannot do this." Richard urged, "Son, we can explain." But Zach cut him off. "They are particularly interested in how company funds ended up in personal Cayman accounts." David snarled, "Those patents are mine. I did all the work while you played the environmentalist hero." Violet interjected in a calm tone, "I have documentation proving that Mr. Zachary Aguirre developed those cleanup protocols." Michelle slapped David again. "You scoundrel," she cried. As EPA agents began collecting evidence, the boardroom was filled with tension and shock. Through the glass walls, reporters surged forward. Camera flashes captured every moment of David's downfall. Kayla announced to Zach, "Gabriella is on the line. She is hysterical about her Swiss accounts being frozen." "Let her panic," Zach replied calmly as he gathered his documents. "Francis, proceed with Phase 3 already. Contact our major clients and reassure them about their contracts." Francis then projected new information. "David's other families have been contacted. They are filing joint lawsuits, and your parents' reputation is in jeopardy." Social media coverage showed that charity board positions were at risk. The sun set over Seattle as Zach surveyed the aftermath of the day's events. In a single afternoon, he had dismantled years of betrayal and deception. His phone buzzed with a message from Lawrence. Gabriella's trainer confirmed everything. "Save something for tomorrow," Zach replied. "They thought they were playing chess while I was playing war." His ruthlessness had won the day, but the cost was evident in every betrayal exposed. Later that evening, Zach's focus shifted to restructuring the company. In a corner office overlooking Puget Sound, Francis organized documents. "Our forensic accountants uncovered irregularities in the printup. Gabriella modified critical pages after signing," she explained. Zach frowned. "The document filed with the court does not match your original copy," he said. "Troy Poole's handiwork. Definitely. He did not expect you to keep the original in your private vault." Francis pulled up offshore banking records. "The tax evasion angle is even better," she noted. "David and your parents created a complex network of shell companies. Each transfer to these Cayman accounts violates federal law." Kayla entered with sealed envelopes. "The loyalty agreements are ready for key employees to sign. It has implemented new recording protocols in every office and conference room. Excellent, Zach said as he reviewed the employee list. What is the status on the board members? He asked. Janet Chun and Marcus Rodriguez have confirmed their support, Kayla reported. They are furious about the patent theft. She then handed him another document. The media strategy is ready. We have exclusive interviews lined up with selected reporters. They will run the story our way, Kayla explained. Francis's phone buzzed with the environmental violations report. David falsified data on 12 major cleanup sites. We can file lawsuits in multiple jurisdictions, Francis said. Sir, Violet Dawson is here, announced Kayla as Violet placed a laptop on the table. David is applying for an expedited French business visa, claiming to represent our European division. Zach smiled coldly. Perfect. Francis, contact our lawyers in Paris. It is time to shut down his escape route. Violet hesitated. The stock is starting to drop. Rumors about EPA investigations are leaking. Let it fall, she added. Zach studied the trading data. We will buy back shares at a discount once this is over, he stated. Turning to Kayla, he asked, how is our disinformation campaign? Working perfectly, she replied. David believes we are focusing solely on the patent theft. He has no idea about the tax evasion evidence, Zach said. Francis organized the documents into separate files. I have prepared lawsuits for each jurisdiction. The moment we strike, he will be fighting legal battles on multiple fronts. What about his other families? Zach asked. The Vancouver partner hired a divorce attorney this morning, Kayla reported. The Los Angeles partner is demanding a paternity test, and his Chicago ex-wife is reopening their custody agreement. An intercom buzzed. Mr. Aguirre. Michelle Wilson is here. Zach straightened his tie. Francis, stay. Everyone else, please give us the room. Michelle entered with controlled fury. I have been reviewing the company records and discovered the full scope of David's fraud, she said. How much did you know? I discovered it the same day you did, replied Zach, gesturing to a chair. Michelle, what I am about to show you goes beyond corporate theft. He nodded to Francis, who slid photos across the table. Michelle's hands trembled as she studied them. All this time, while I defended him to the board, we need your support. Zach leaned forward. The company is facing multiple environmental violations because of David's actions. What do you need? Michelle asked. Vote with me to remove him as European Operations Director and support the emergency board measures we will implement, Zach said. Do better than that. Make him pay for every lie, Michelle insisted. That is the plan, Zach replied. He shared a determined look with Francis. But first, we must secure the company's future. Your public support sends a message to the rest of the board. Done, Michelle stated firmly. After Michelle left, Francis updated the timeline. EPA notifications are ready. Once we file these reports. No, Zach interrupted. Let David proceed with his visa application, so he thinks he is winning. He pulled up surveillance photos of his parents, shredding documents. When we strike, we take everything down at once, he declared. Kayla returned with urgent news. Sir, Gabriella's fertility clinic records have arrived. The timeline is not as she claimed. Save it for later, Zach said dismissively. Focus on the corporate angle. Let us see how many crimes my dear cousin commits while thinking he is untouchable, he declared. The afternoon sun broke through Seattle's clouds as he contemplated the betrayal and planned his next move. One final note came from Lawrence. Your parents were seen at their bank this morning trying to liquidate the family estate. Zach studied the image of his parents hurrying from the bank's private entrance. They have always underestimated me, he whispered, and now they will pay for their betrayal. Later that night, as the boardroom cleared, the aftermath of the day's revelations weighed heavily on everyone. In that single day, generations of family loyalty had shattered, leaving only the cold truth of betrayal behind. Francis's legal strategy sessions continued into the night. In her corner office overlooking Puget Sound, she organized documents and evidence, ensuring every detail was in place for the coming legal battles. Across town, the crisis had spread. Richard and Marina Aguirre faced their son for the first time since sentencing. Their carefully crafted social empire was crumbling, and they were left with only the bitter taste of betrayal. David, now in custody, could only watch as his world collapsed. The stolen patents, the diverted funds, and every deceitful action had finally caught up with him. In the silence of a holding cell, he realized that even his smooth charm could not save him from justice. Outside, Seattle's skyline shimmered in the rain. In that moment, Zach thought, "They all thought they knew me, but now they will learn the price of betrayal." His determination to reclaim his legacy burned brighter than ever. In the days that followed, the boardroom transformed into a war room. Dual monitors displayed financial records, while stacks of documents covered a mahogany desk. Violet Dawson's steady hand sorted through evidence of fraud and embezzlement. Every revelation, be it forged travel expenses, falsified environmental reports, or offshore banking transfers, fit into a larger pattern of deception. Each detail was a nail in the coffin of David's reign of treachery. As the EPA agents continued their investigation, Michelle Wilson prepared her formal statement. "We must remove him from all positions and secure the company's future," she declared. Her voice was steady, resolute in the face of mounting evidence. Zach, calm yet determined, directed his team. "Contact our major clients immediately. Reassure them that we are taking decisive action." Kayla and Francis worked quickly, their focus unyielding in the chaos. Every step was measured. The emergency board meeting had been set, and new protocols were being implemented. The disinformation campaign was in full swing. David believed we were only focusing on the patent theft, unaware of the tax evasion evidence. Francis organized lawsuits by jurisdiction. "Once we strike, he will face legal battles on every front," she said. His Vancouver partner, Los Angeles partner, and Chicago ex-wife are all preparing for litigation. The net was tightening. The boardroom's tension gave way to a quiet determination. Michelle and Zach shared a nod of understanding, a mutual commitment to exposing every lie and reclaiming their company's honor. Every betrayal would be accounted for. As Seattle's night fell, the remnants of a shattered family legacy lay scattered like broken glass. Yet from those fragments, a new vision of environmental integrity and corporate responsibility began to take shape. In the weeks that followed, the company rebuilt itself piece by piece. New leadership, strict compliance protocols, and legal victories restored client confidence and renewed investor trust. Zach presented their latest initiative to enthusiastic investors in the newly renovated headquarters. "Our breakthrough cleaning technology has reduced toxic waste by 80%, he announced. "The EPA has certified all formerly contaminated sites as fully restored." Janet Chun, now Global Operations Director, added, "Our Asian markets are thriving with 3 major contracts signed." Marcus Rodriguez reported record profits in Europe. The company's stock reached a new high that morning. Michelle Wilson, managing investor relations with renewed vigor, observed, "Our environmental leadership awards have restored public confidence." Meanwhile, the press could not get enough of the company's restoration projects. A gentle knock at the door signaled Andrea Hart from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. With a warm smile, she announced, "The Victim Compensation Foundation is ready to launch. We have identified all affected parties from David's schemes." Andrea's involvement had evolved from investigative work to a role in rebuilding community trust. Her expertise helped secure education funds, medical coverage, and small business grants for victim families. The boardroom buzzed with activity as Violet Dawson presented quarterly compliance reports. "Environmental initiatives are exceeding projections," she said. "Client confidence is at record levels." Janet smiled as she mentioned, "The International Environmental Council is presenting us with a leadership award next month." In a quiet moment, Zach and Andrea reviewed the day's achievements at their favorite Italian restaurant. Their wedding plans, kept private, would reflect the same integrity they demanded professionally. Every victory had been hard-won. Later, Kayla brought breaking news. Marla Petty's relocation is complete. A fresh start at a small-town bookstore, she added. And Gabriella is teaching yoga at a suburban studio now. Big changes indeed. Amid the news, Frances informed Zach that Troy Poole's disbarment was official. Legal ethics matter, she said, her tone resolute. Zach's expression remained cold as he processed the updates, each one a blow to the corrupt legacy. In the boardroom, as the environmental compliance seminar was about to begin, Kayla reminded everyone, executives from 12 companies are waiting. They are eager to learn from our enhanced protocols. Janet added, your opening speech about corporate integrity has them intrigued. Zach gathered his materials and shared a meaningful glance with Andrea. Let us show them how real environmental leadership works, he declared. As they headed to the seminar, Michelle touched his arm and said, I heard the Chicago family's daughter made the honor roll. The foundation will match her college fund. Every victim deserves a fresh start, Zach decided. Later, Frances shared more good news. The EPA's quarterly review shows perfect scores across all sites. They are now using our cleanup model as the new standard. The new company logo, a phoenix rising with the words environmental integrity, shone brightly. Andrea observed, quite a change from a year ago. Zach agreed softly, good changes, built on truth this time. During the seminar, eager executives listened as Zach commanded the room with authentic authority. He taught them to prioritize environmental responsibility over quick profits. This, Andrea thought, is how legacies should be rebuilt. 1 year later, at the Seattle Environmental Leadership Summit, industry leaders gathered to witness Aguirre Environmental Solutions receive its 5th consecutive Compliance Excellence Award. Under Zachary Aguirre's leadership, EPA Director Thompson announced that toxic waste removal efficiency had improved 300%. The audience rose in a standing ovation as Zach approached the podium. Andrea, in the front row, recalled how environmental responsibility was more than corporate rhetoric. It was a daily commitment to community service. Screens displayed before and after images of restored landscapes. Children played in parks that were once contaminated. Local news clips showed families returning to clean neighborhoods. Janet Chun presented impressive Asia-Pacific expansion results. Marcus Rodriguez reported that the Paris branch now hosts the EU's Environmental Training Center. In the audience, Michelle Wilson sat with David's Vancouver partner, whose college-aged son had earned the first Foundation Merit Scholarship in environmental science. The victim support program exceeded expectations, with a 100% college acceptance rate for affected families. 12 new small businesses launched, and 3 community centers opened. Even security footage from a suburban mall showed Gabriella teaching yoga to half-empty classes. The audience murmured knowingly. From their federal correctional facility correspondent, Michelle whispered to Zach that David's attempt to teach business ethics in prison was poorly received. Francis Valenzuela shared hard data, 0 violations across all operations, and every audit had passed with distinction. The Aguirre Protocol became standard language in environmental contracts. A discreet alert on Zach's phone showed his parents' retirement home check-in. Richard and Marina continued their monitored existence in a modest apartment, their social calendar now filled only with mandatory therapy sessions. Troy Poole was spotted working at a local diner. Disbarred lawyers have limited career options. Kayla murmured while placing updated statistics on the podium. The summit's closing ceremony featured International Environmental Council Director Sarah Chun, who praised the Foundation's work in transforming corporate culture. Violet Dawson, now Chief Financial Officer, displayed the final quarterly results. The stock had tripled, client satisfaction was at record highs, and employee retention topped industry charts. Marla Petty sent her regards from her small-town bookstore, now with an added coffee shop. Later that evening, Andrea took the stage to announce the launch of the Corporate Integrity Institute. Today, we teach businesses to prioritize ethics over profit and environmental responsibility over quick gains, she said. No other family should suffer from corporate betrayal again. At their favorite Italian restaurant, Zach and Andrea reviewed the day's achievements privately. Their wedding plans would reflect the same integrity they demanded professionally. The Chicago family's daughter made the dean's list. Andrea noted, "She is interning with our environmental science division this summer." Zach smiled. "We are building futures instead of destroying them." A news report on the TV showed David being denied parole. His prison jumpsuit had replaced his designer suits, and his smooth charm was gone. Andrea added, "Your cousin's Vancouver partner just earned her MBA. Our education grants work wonders," Zach replied. "And the community center in that cleaned-up neighborhood opens tomorrow." Ready to cut the ribbon. A late-breaking announcement declared that the International Environmental Council had named Aguirre Solutions Rehabilitation Program Project of the Decade. Andrea observed, "The right legacy this time." Zach agreed, "Our ruthless pursuit of justice, tempered by genuine commitment, has created something enduring." Outside, Seattle's lights glittered as they reviewed their shared vision. Environmental integrity, corporate responsibility, and healing for betrayal's victims. The phoenix had risen from familial ashes. Epilogue. 10 years after the scandal that shattered Seattle's elite, Gabriella Fink taught sparsely attended yoga classes at Serenity Mind and Body Studio in suburban Tacoma. Her once flawless face now bore the strain of failed ambitions. The Louis Vuitton luggage she once packed for Paris now gathered dust in her cramped one-bedroom apartment above the studio. In a gentle voice during child's pose, she instructed her 3 students without the confidence that once charmed Seattle's social circles. The diamond bracelet David had given her, proven fake like his promises, had long been pawned to cover rent. Her phone buzzed with another rejected job application. No prestigious fitness center would hire her after the scandal. Derek, the trainer who had fathered her child, had married a younger instructor years ago. His successful chain of CrossFit gyms across Seattle was a constant reminder of what she had lost. Her 10-year-old son, raised on child support from a reluctant Derek, showed no interest in meeting the man who once claimed to be his father. David's name now brought only shame. In a federal correctional institution, David Aguirre's parole hearing ended as usual, denied for his continued attempts to orchestrate financial schemes from prison. His multiple families had flourished without him. His Vancouver partner's environmental consulting firm, built with foundation support, now advised major corporations. Their children, graduates of prestigious universities, worked in environmental protection, a fitting irony indeed. The Los Angeles partner had married a tech executive, and her foundation-supported therapy practice helped other victims of manipulation. David's Chicago ex-wife now ran an art gallery showcasing environmental awareness pieces, and their daughter led youth advocacy programs. Richard and Marina Aguirre lived quietly in a monitored retirement community. Their social media obsession had been replaced by court-mandated therapy. They watched from afar as former friends attended galas they once hosted, their charitable foundation, now led by Andrea Hart Aguirre, standing as a testament to true leadership. Troy Poole, the disbarred lawyer, managed a small-town diner after bankruptcy consumed his assets. His legal ethics violations became cautionary tales at law schools. Marla Petty found unexpected happiness in a small coastal town bookstore, the coffee shop edition thriving, and her book club's environmental awareness series drawing passionate locals. Her testimony against David, once seen as betrayal, freed her from toxic family obligations. Michelle Wilson's environmental compliance consulting firm set industry standards. Her experience with David's deceptions now helped other companies prevent similar fraud. She had remarried. Her new husband's integrity was a stark contrast to David's manipulation. At the Aguirre Environmental Solutions headquarters, Zach reviewed decades of achievements with his executive team. The company's market value had increased tenfold, and their cleanup technology restored ecosystems worldwide. The London office reported complete rehabilitation of a former industrial zone. Janet Chun, now global president, announced projects finished ahead of schedule and under budget. Marcus Rodriguez, heading European operations from the Paris office David once coveted, shared record profits. The EU Environmental Council adopted Aguirre's standards across member nations. Violet Dawson's financial stewardship earned industry accolades. Her whistleblowing against David became a Harvard Business School case study in corporate ethics. Kayla Harper, promoted to chief of staff, managed the company's expanding influence with quiet efficiency. Francis Valenzuela's legal frameworks influenced international law. Lawrence Hart's security firm developed cutting-edge corporate fraud prevention systems used by law enforcement. In their restored Seattle hilltop home, Zach and Andrea Hart Aguirre reviewed foundation achievements over breakfast. Their twin daughters, future environmental scientists, inherited their parents' commitment to integrity. The Vancouver family's youngest graduated summa cum laude in environmental law at Yale, Andrea noted. Perfect timing, Zach replied. The Foundation's Legal Justice Initiative would launch next quarter, growing beyond victim support into a global force for corporate responsibility. Their Corporate Integrity Institute trained executives worldwide, and environmental justice programs restored communities once endangered by David's crimes. News alerts showed David still in prison orange, gray-haired and bitter, facing 3 more years of consequences. Gabriela closed her failed studio and returned to her small apartment above thriving shops. Richard and Marina attended mandatory therapy, their former social power replaced by supervised humility. A decade of justice had proven that true integrity matters more than inherited power. As night fell over Seattle, restored landscapes stretched toward tomorrow. The company's environmental innovations promised cleaner futures, and the Foundation's work ensured that from betrayal's ashes, something finer had grown. Zach and Andrea reviewed their daughters' university applications, future environmental scientists building legacies anchored in truth rather than treachery. A final news alert showed David in prison, his Paris dreams dissolved into harsh reality. Gabriela's last student canceled class as she locked her studio, her designer yoga attire replaced by simpler brands. The Foundation's quarterly report boasted a 100% college graduation rate for victim families, dozens of successful small businesses, and internationally adopted corporate ethics programs. The Aguirre legacy had been redefined through integrity rather than inheritance, a testament that justice serves best when it creates rather than merely destroys. Every victory over betrayal proved that character matters more than charm, and genuine achievement survives when false facades crumble. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.